Well, things changed a lot. It's been 6 weeks unlike any 6 weeks I've ever experienced before, and uh, more than anything, I think as we've come through this, I'm inspired by our staff, by our coaches, by our student athletes, their selflessness, their creativity, their commitment, their passion has all really been on full display here over these last several weeks, and that more than anything, I think has renewed my um, enthusiasm for this program and the bright future that we have, and just looking forward to getting through this and getting into that normal, whatever normal may look like on the other side, so that our student athletes and teams have a chance to resume their competition and get back to what they enjoy and what they're passionate about.
Follow up, Craig? Okay. Jim Matson, you're up, and Nico, you're on deck.
Hey, Josh, I just wanted to ask about, obviously people are already worried about the fall in football. Is there any way to quantify how crippling it would be to not have fans in the fall? And do you think it's legitimate to think about having a spring football season?
Um, sure, I think it's I don't want to say easy, but it certainly is very quantifiable to identify what a lack of fans would mean in terms of our revenue. We've been working through a lot of those different scenarios, whether it's zero fans or whether it's a mandated social distancing scenario where maybe we're only able to sell one ticket out of every four, or whatever the numbers may be, or whether people maybe just don't want to come out in the same numbers that they once did, at least until we're able to really put this virus behind us. And so you work through all those different contingency plans. You take a look at what the lost revenue could look like. But then it's hard because you don't know exactly which scenario will play out. Will it be, as you said, an empty stadium? Will it be a 25% stadium? Will it be a full schedule? Will it be a condensed schedule of 9 games only? Will it be a full schedule that starts in October and plays out through December and January, and where now people are being asked to come out in some challenging weather circumstances, and or as you mentioned, could you put something into the spring? I think there's a lot of different ideas being put on the table right now. Very few of them are being dismissed out of hand. I think that everybody's looking at all the different scenarios and trying to evaluate each one on its merits, whether the pros and the cons. And I think one of the biggest challenges is they each have fairly extended lists of both. And a lot of times, whether the pro or the con depends on kind of where we're at with the pandemic by a particular point in time, and how people will respond. And so I think the biggest challenge here is probably that we're going to need to make some decisions with incomplete information. I think we have to avoid making those decisions prematurely, try and push those as late as we can so that we have as much information as possible. But I think it's fair to say that it will likely be different, and we just have to wait and see what those differences will look like.
Jim, do you have a follow-up?
If I could follow up, Bob Bowlesby from the Big 12 said he couldn't envision student athletes being on campus without students on campus. Do you have a comment on that? Could you still have e-learning and bring just the student athletes back to Champaign-Urbana, or do you kind of agree that that's not the right method?
I tend to agree with Bob on a lot of things, but I think that in this case, if we just have to be careful what we message. If we're bringing student athletes back to campus but not students, why are we doing that? Why do we have confidence that it would be safe and healthy for the student athletes to be here but not the entire student body? And so my hope is that, and that's probably the decision that I'm paying most careful attention to, is the decision from our university and other universities in terms of when to resume in-person instruction, and what that could look like. It could happen in a lot of different contingencies as well, in terms of class density and trying to create distancing across campus. But hopefully at some point we're able to bring students back to campus and bring student athletes
Thank you.
right along with them.
Nico, you're up to bat. Brett Barons.
Josh, there's been obviously a lot of negative news every day. It can kind of be hard to handle. What are some of the biggest positives that you've seen, maybe just in terms of, whether it be the Illini community coming together or just our community here, or just kind of people being able to help each other and bring people up during this time?
I think it's been incredible. I've really been inspired by the outpouring of support and the way people have set aside differences and really reprioritize their values in the face of this challenge. And whether you're talking about within the athletic program, the university, our community, I think people have really come to the forefront and embraced their neighbors, embraced their friends, embraced strangers, and tried to really step forward and be there to help each other. I think it's helped us to remember what's most important, and certainly we've seen that play its way out in any number of situations here within Illinois athletics, but I think more broadly as a community as well.
Follow up, Nico.
That's it.
Brett Barons, you're up.
Josh, how much are you learning about the financial impact that this is having, and how long do you think this will impact your program specifically financially?
I think that it really would be speculation at this point. I mean, we don't know is the short answer. We have a fairly decent sense of what it will mean for us for the remainder of this fiscal year. We only have a few months left, and that lost revenue primarily stems from the Big Ten men's basketball tournament and the NCAA tournament. But beyond that, as we look into next fiscal year, which is really where I think the rubber meets the road, it's just hard to say, and we just don't know. Again, with football and men's basketball being our primary revenue drivers, any change to those seasons, whether it's a shortened season, a delayed season, a spring season, those things all obviously have implications in terms of the television contracts, in terms of attendance and all the ancillary revenues that come from having people in the stands. And so we're in the process of putting together a number of different plans that contemplate a variety of those scenarios. But it really would be very early, I would say, to speculate in terms of what that could look like, just knowing all the different paths that it could take here in the weeks and months ahead.
If you didn't have a football season, or if it was delayed somehow, how much would that affect what you guys do financially?
Well, it could affect what we do fairly meaningfully. If certainly if we don't have any football season, that's the worst of all scenarios. I think in terms of the finances for the athletic program. I mean, that would be, I think if you look at some of the public information we have out there, I think we attribute around 55 to 60% of our programmatic revenue to football. So if you lose, some percentage of that, some high percentage of that revenue, that's meaningful, and we'd have to look at some fairly dramatic operational changes to try and endure that. But we're hopeful that some football will be played again, whether it's a condensed schedule in the fall, whether it's a full schedule that started late, whether it's some sort of spring format. I think there are a lot of different ways this could play out, and we're optimistic that one of those scenarios, which will still have its own set of challenges, but would certainly be better than no football, will ultimately come to pass.
I'll kind of open up for the horn here if there's any other questions from Craig, Jim, Nico, or Brett.
I would ask real quick, we actually have two of your golfers in my hometown of Morton, two of your foreign golfers. And are you telling, and when the semester's over, are you going to tell them to go back to their homes? Is there a fear of them getting a student visa and getting back? What are you telling your foreign athletes about going home?
Well, we're encouraging all of them to make good decisions for their own safety and well-being, and we've been in touch. We don't have so many international student athletes that we need to talk to them as a collective group. We're able to work with them each individually and talk about where they're from and what the environment is in that place. And obviously the customs and immigration continues to change fairly regularly, and so we're trying to stay on top of that as well. And so we've left that largely to their discretion. Many of them have chosen to stay here in the States, and I would expect that they probably would remain here. Even at this point, there's nothing to hold them here academically. Whether the end of the semester really has no relevance in terms of where they physically need to be. And so I think that they'll just have to continue to monitor that. And a lot of them would ordinarily be here at this time of year anyway. And so I think they're just choosing to hunker down like the rest of us and kind of wait this out.
Josh, a couple Illini have declared for the NBA draft, and Kofi and Ayo. Is that kind of bittersweet for you? Because obviously, you kind of want these guys to make it to the next level, but after such a special season ending the way it did, what was your kind of reaction to those two moments?
Yeah, I obviously I think the world of Ayo and Kofi. I've gotten to know both of them well. I'm really excited for their future, and I really truly believe that for everybody involved, whether you're talking about those two young men or our basketball program at the University of Illinois, I see this as a win-win. I think that if they have the opportunity to go off and have successful professional careers, we're going to support them in that, whether that's now or later. They'll be a part of our Illini family forever, and we'll always be thankful for what they've done here. If they choose to come back, obviously I think they'd have a chance to come back and be hugely important members of what I think could be one of the best basketball teams in the history of our program. I think a team that could be preseason pick to win the Big Ten, and a team that could compete at a high level across the country. And so I think from their perspective, both of those scenarios sound pretty great. And then from the basketball program's perspective, if both of those young men choose to turn pro, I think that's a feather in the cap for Illinois basketball. We're creating professionals. We're a place where people come who want to be pro basketball players, and you need look no further than Kofi and Ayo as example A and example B, and that's great for Illinois basketball. Or vice versa, if they do choose to come back again, as I said, I think it obviously be fantastic for us to have a chance to compete at a very, very high level with those two gentlemen back in the orange and blue, and excited about what that could mean for this coming season. So bottom line, we're going to be there to support them, help them make a great decision. They'll be a part of our family forever. And no matter what decision they make, we will celebrate that. And I think it could be good for all involved, no matter the outcome.
Josh, we've had two golfers say they're going to take advantage of that extra year of eligibility. Is that something you extended to everyone, I assume? And what were the parameters of that?
We did. We had some extensive conversation around that internally, how we wanted to approach that. And the NCAA gave autonomy to each institution to make its own decisions. We felt like here at Illinois, it made the most sense for us to extend that invitation to all of our current spring sports seniors at the same level of financial aid that they received this year. And ultimately, I think we'll have about 15 student athletes from, I believe, 6 different sports who have indicated an interest in taking us up on that and returning next year. We were excited for them to have a chance to come back and finish this thing up the right way. Obviously, they put 4 or 5, in some cases 6 years of their lives on the line and done a lot of hard work to try and enjoy this senior year, and we wanted to give them the chance to have that true senior year, and we'll welcome any of that group back that wants to be with us heading into the new year.
Josh, I read that you had planned to announce hockey next month, and now that's on hold. What went into that decision for you to decide that it was time, and then what does that mean that you are not going to be able to do it next month now?
Well, hockey for us obviously has been an ongoing project now for over 3 years. We've been studying it and felt like, I really have a lot of appreciation for the different entities, people, organizations who have come together to help get us in a good place with that. We've confronted a lot of obstacles here over the last 12, 18 months, and it's really required us to think creatively and look for different solutions, and we've been able to do that. And here over the last 3 months in particular, felt like we had a real a couple breakthrough moments that put us in a good position to spearhead that project going forward. We were starting to gear up for an announcement as early as next month. But obviously with this situation now and some of the financial uncertainty that it's created, not just for Illinois Athletics, but for some of the other partners who are part of the project also, I think it makes sense for us to take what I hope is a short-term pause, and then we'll come back as the dust settles here a bit and we have a better sense of what the future looks like. We remain very committed to the project, excited about it, the impact that it could have on volleyball, wrestling, men's and women's gymnastics, and then obviously the chance to add hockey at a high level. And hopefully we can come back to it sooner rather than later.
Were you at a point financially with donations that you felt like you had got to a bridge point or an announcement point, and what was that number for you?
Yeah, I don't want to get into a lot of specifics around it, but clearly, I mean, if we were planning to gear up for an announcement next month, we had reached a point where financially we felt like we were in a good spot, and we were comfortable in moving the project forward. We'd had a lot of different entities, people, organizations step up in various capacities. We hope, and part of the project process now is reconnecting with all those different groups and making sure that kind of seeing how everybody's doing and where they're at. And this is something that, we want to continue to try and push once we get through the immediate changes here precipitated by the pandemic.